I've never really seen. I haven't seen many people. If there's someone, let me know. People who have quote unquote made it big, and then when people ask them where they're from, say I'm from Sassoon City, California. You know, they'll generalize it to something bigger.
They'll give the area code,
right? 707, right? Fairfield. What?
There's only one person I can think of.
Who?
One person.
One person.
Who is it?
That's why did I just forget his name that fast? Rick Rock.
Oh, Rick Rock.
Rick Rock Beats, Uncle Ricky Rock.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Shout out, Rick Rock Beats.
I suck at text messaging people. I'm terrible at it. And like even to the point where even in business, to be honest, like even business, I've missed leads because I'm just slow at the thumb speed sometimes.
Yeah.
But I just remember a client like hounding me, like, hey, I need a quote. And I finally gave him the number. I'm like, they're not gonna call me back.
Yeah.
They didn't call me back.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like a thing where I was like, I gave them the number I thought I was valued at. And even though I'm familiar with this person, I didn't want to, again, going back to the whole hookup thing, it's like, hey, my time is valuable. It's super valuable right now because I have a 4 and a soon-to-be 2-year-old. And like the time I miss from them, I'm missing some key moments. Dude, my son is talking more and more every day.
Right.
It's like I wake up and like all I hear is gibberish, like coming out the other room, like speaking in tongues, like what's happening? But kind of going back to the whole imposter syndrome, obviously doing a little bit of research so I can make sure that I was accurate to understand the concept of imposter syndrome. And one of the things on the videos that I watched, it was talking about the best way to combat imposter syndrome is getting that validation, like you were saying. Like going back to you saying, hey, another part of my payment is me giving you the mirror and you going, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and just as one of your clients,
Right.
I think because we've created that relationship just on that business side, when you hand me the mirror, I'm like, there's very seldom any time you give me the mirror, and I'm like, nah.
Right.
So that's why half the time you give to me, like, what do you give me this mirror for? I know it's fine.
Right.
Because you offer that kind of quality service. And so I think, like, even I look at it, like, on a micro sense of, like, what we're doing now. I think about when our brother Donald here had presented us this concept of Watch Me Develop. He had, like, a whole presentation put together for us to, like, get a concept of what was going on. And what really blessed me was the fact that not only did he put the vision out, but he gave us all what we were. And for me, someone that experiences imposter syndrome was like, my title had said media professional. And I'm like, I am that. And it had to come through a validation of somebody else that sees me. And so like for me, I think a part of my quote unquote imposter syndrome has kind of come from a point of, I just think I'm a regular dude. I think anybody can do what I do.
Yeah.
But then when I start to realize like, bro, no, not everybody can do what you do. That's where it kind of comes that confidence. It's like, okay. And I think for people that do experience imposter syndrome, they think that the opposite of imposter syndrome is you being cocky, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
I think it's a part of you can have confidence without being cocky or being full of yourself. And I recognize it too, like because we have staff meetings for our church. I'm a part of the staff at our church, and I'll start explaining a certain concept, thinking that this is just regular lingo.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're like, what is a JPEG?
Speak English, please.
Right. What is a PNG?
Right. But there's also like a thin line between being conceited and convinced. Right. That's the thing. Is like, you know, it's funny because my play brother, that was like one of his lines in one of his verses. Like, I'm not conceited, I'm convinced. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that's true. Is like you can be mistaken. You know, walking in confidence. Like I don't know if, you know, I've shared this with you guys in conversations, but like for me and my family, our goal this year was, you know, our motto as a family is that we're going to be committed to confidence. We're making a commitment to confidence. And because the thing is that you can't be confident. Well, one of the things that you're always gonna lose when you lack confidence. Straight up, like again, if you go into it like with a "I'll try" attitude, you know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't sound very convincing, right? It doesn't even sound like you're convinced. As like you hear somebody like present or make a statement, but it sounds like the sound of it, the inflection of the last word goes up like it's a question.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be a statement.
Yeah,
It's like, are you trying to convince me or are you trying to convince you?
yourself.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's one of the big things. And so what I want to throw out here is this: I had this, one of the things I've been doing to try and encourage myself and maintain the confidence in moving forward in my creativity is a C.S. Lewis quote. And it says that he says, "But what's often overlooked is the need to create in community with other believers. For those of us who choose to follow the call to create, we must surround ourselves with the fellow Christian creators who can help renew our minds with eternal perspective as we create." And so I think that's like one of the things that was dope. Like for a lot of people that know, I know you know this because you recently, I think, read one of his devotionals. But he used to be part of a group of writers. C.S. Lewis, for those of you guys that aren't familiar, Chronicles of Narnia, Screwtape Letters, a lot of like really good allegorical, biblical worldview novels and stuff that he's written that are like classics, and they've been like heralded worldwide, right? So, and then on top of that, he what you understand and find out is if you read anything about his history and his story, is that he was a part of a collective of writers who also shared the same biblical worldview, and they called themselves the Inklings, and they would write or have writing sessions or sessions where they'd come together like a couple of times a month, and they would like just sit there and like, okay, read to me what it is that you wrote. What have you been working on? And as they read, they're being critiqued. They're being critiqued, or they're like being validated as to, oh yeah, that was great, man. I really love what you did there and how you presented this character or how you presented this thought and this theme and so on and so forth. And you have other people who that were in that group that shared the same level of success that he did, if not greater, like with, was it J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings?
And The Hobbit.
So it's like The Hobbit, like all
He
these
was in that group?
all of them were friends.
So
they were
mind
like
you,
together.
It's not like C.S. Lewis was with a bunch of no names. I forgot the rest because obviously C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien that are like the biggest of the
Yeah.
4 or 5.
Exactly.
But it's like these were all heavy hitters in English literature.
Yeah.
And not just my buddies from back in town. Like, no, these were all dudes that were like accomplished writers. And like to hear not only that these people that were operating on, for lack of better words, like a secular level, that were still giving you biblical allegories like through the means of literature was dope to me. It's like, so you're telling me that somebody in the Christian world, in the kingdom, can operate and still be at a level and not be the Christian version of whatever it is?
They're just literally being creative. They're walking in their creative identity because they know who it is that gave them the ability to do it.
Wow.
And so I think that's what needs to be important, like really stressed and put out there for a lot of us as believers, is that, man, like you have every song, like that's why I appreciate cats like PJ, right? Or is it PJ? Morton?
Yeah.
Yeah, like dude was one of the first like known Christians that I knew that like was I'm dropping a love album.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He got like all this flack behind the fact that he's writing a love album. Why? You think because he's gonna go out there and like write the Christian version of Pony? Like, I mean, like I'm just saying, like I don't get it. Like he gonna write the Christian version of Poison, or whatever. He wants to write a love song, and a lot of us overlook the fact that like there's a whole book in the Bible that's dedicated to romantic love, like a love story. And so it's just like sometimes people in church be weird. I don't get it. I don't understand. But praise God for freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, it's that whole thing, and I think also is putting too much of a high value on what other people say. Is what can contribute to you feeling like you're an imposter.
No, absolutely. Like, and even to speak to that, Because read that quote one more time.
It says, but what's often overlooked is the need to create in the community with other believers. For those of us who choose to follow the call to create, we must surround ourselves with fellow Christian creators who can help renew our minds with eternal perspective as we create.
No, yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different places in life where I am a beginner right now. I've been cutting hair for the last 15 years, so I can speak more so with a lot of experience from that. But like, say, serving at church, I'm a beginner, and I have been experiencing imposter syndrome severely while serving on, the forward ministry. But being able to serve in the body and to be affirmed by fellow believers to say, no, you're doing good. You're doing a good job. Like every time, you, Raquel, or Atira, or anyone lets us know, like, hey, that was good. No, it's okay. Or even when you pop in the lives, JR, and you're down there in your comments and you're letting us know, like, no, that's cool, fire. That type of stuff has helped me and Nadia continue to like go and to continue to grow. So that's I think one of the benefits of creating with believers, because believers know that it's important to give honor where honor is due, right. And let me exhort you, let me lift you up, as you're going on and pursuing whatever it is that you're pursuing, because let's be honest, the real world, whatever it is that you have to offer goes out into the real world and you're finding your niche and it's different, like there's going to be a lot of arrows that come along with that. Yeah. So to be able to be amongst a group of believers that are also creatives to say, hey, no, I understand what it is that you're going through, and no, actually what you have is really dope. Make sure keep going so that you do find, because it's going to land somewhere. And somebody's going to catch what it is that you're tossing them. Yeah. It's huge. But then again, at the same time, you always have to make sure that you have that individual like refilling to be able to say, okay, well, what does God say about me? You know what I mean? In the event that I'm experiencing this imposter syndrome and I'm not around my brother or my sister to lift me up, while I'm a target to be taken out right now, let me make sure that my mind is fortified with what God has to say about me. So it's important to have both, just like with God, that individual relationship and then a relationship with the corporate body of Christ. I feel like it's the same. It's one and the same.
The reason why, like, I take the time out to like make sure that I'm on the lives, not only being a young adult, obviously, but I know exactly what you guys go through in the sense of I am not so far removed to what it was like to start in ministry. Yeah. And so because I'm on that other side, just, by a little bit, it's almost like, let me give you the encouragement that either I may not have experienced or that I didn't experience until later, because I understand what it's like. Like, bro, what was I even talking about? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Because, like, for instance, like, I recognize you and I recognize the skills that Nadia has, to where, like, you look at Nadia, for instance, I'm not saying that she's just like completely worldly before, but thinking about how your influence is how many people you know and people you can pour into, and her influence, like, God didn't give you that gift by accident. Right. And so now that you've come to a knowledge of who he is and you've changed your heart and you changed your mindset, now you can take this gift and go, oh, let me use it for what it really is used for. Exactly. Like, of course, you can use a butter knife to open up something that needs a screwdriver, but when you really use that butter knife for what it's supposed to be used for, that's when you get the real purpose out of it. Right, absolutely.
You ever use the screwdriver to cut butter?
Yeah, and not happening.
Right.
But I just say that to say, like, now that we are kind of become not only brothers in, like, being fathers and being husbands, and now kind of more so being in ministry, like linking our arms in that way, I'm like, no, you're doing great. Keep going. Yeah. Because now I recognize the gift in you as a brother in Christ. I recognize the gift in you. It's like, nah, this is what you should do. Yeah. You're overthinking it, bro. Just use it and just allow God to use you. Because I know one of the things that I've struggled with being a youth pastor with no traditional, like, seminary training or anything like that. I'm just like, so I know dudes that can preach circles around me. Right. I know colleagues that have ministries that are that have 500 kids that come to their youth group every week, and I look at my youth group and it's just like, and like you guys were saying before, comparison could be a killer. It's like you're over here looking at the capacity that they give, and it's like the old parable where it talks about, well, you gave them 10 talents and you gave him 5 talents. You only gave me this one. What am I supposed to do with it? I'm just going to bury it. Right. It's like, no, do what God has given you. Right. Like, okay, okay, cool. Donald has been given 10 talents. I might have been given 5, but let me do with my 5 that I need to do.
Yes.
And
Yeah, like God, like it's like the master gave me like Dogecoin, like a bunch of Dogecoin, and he gave you a Bitcoin.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like, because we don't ever know like that one talent. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That one talent could like just exponentially,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, multiply into you know something that's completely crazy, as opposed to like, you know, everything. Even if you look at it as seeds, like right. The bunch of seeds could turn into like a bunch of little bushels, where the seed that he gave you turns into like this humongous
oak
gigantic
tree. Like,
Right.
So I think it's just important for us to
yeah.
kind of stick to, like you were saying, Josh, before. Okay, what is God saying? And then when you're part of a body of believers, a true body of believers, not just calling themselves Christians, but real followers, they're going to resonate with what God says because they're tapped into.
Yeah.
So it's important. Christian community is absolutely important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And I'm so grateful to be going on this journey with y'all. Like
Yeah.
everything, we have no idea, you know, we can't despise humble beginnings, and we're beginning in a lot of ways and putting this out, you know, to the world, you know, to see who says, oh, yep, that's for me. Like, it's exciting because I know there's people out there that need to hear and need to be encouraged, you know, because at the end of the day, when it comes to growth or gaining confidence, I think a lot of it has to do with you know, just being exposed to something that's outside of your norm, you know, like maybe I don't know, say you had a family member who was, say, you know, for me, a barber. I was exposed to that, you know, like you think about it, it's not really a coincidence that I became a barber. I saw that within my home, but sometimes it takes someone a little bit further removed to expose you to something, to say, hey, you know what? I can do that because JR did that. And I don't know JR, but he seems like a regular guy, you know, or Donald, he seems like a regular guy, you know. And if somebody who's regular, you know, is able to do something great, you know, maybe I can too, you know.
Let me, and don't, please tell me if I'm being too spiritual, guys. But, you know, a lot of times we talk about with discipleship, right? Like always have a Paul, a Barnabas, and a Timothy kind of thing.
Yeah.
How important do you guys think that is in our creative and business ventures? Because we talk about it in the spiritual side. What about like the more practical side?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely important. I know for me it's been a little bit difficult as far as like, because I don't know anybody immediately around me that does what it is that I aspire to do. In the sense of like the closest I've come to it is just finding other businessmen or entrepreneurs, right? That are being successful in entrepreneurship. And then also I always like, I'm an advocate for anybody that's younger than me to consider, you know what I'm saying? If they have the talents and the abilities that like I can recognize, I always am an advocate to have them pursue what it is that their talents and their gifts are, in hopes that they'll be able to have the freedom of working for themselves.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So I think it's very important, but like where you segued into this question as far as from where he was, what he's talking about exposure, like that's something that's been a huge recurring conversation with me and my wife and our kids as of late, because for me, like, you know, it's one thing to be here, and I think that's why a lot of my peers growing up, even a lot of our peers growing up, wanted to move away. You know what I'm saying? Wanted to move away.
Right.
Because they're like, because I got to get out of here, right? Like, because they want to be exposed to other stuff, which is cool.
Right.
For me, it was a little bit different growing up because I know that there's stuff outside of here. You know what I'm saying? I know there's stuff outside of here. So for me, growing up, my grandparents they're a military family, right? They've traveled the world. You know what I'm saying? They're from back east, which is cool because we got roots that are back east and down south. But I got exposed to some of that when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I know that there's things outside of here, but I also feel like this is home, right? I also feel like this is home, and I feel like I can share those experiences. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, I don't ever see myself leaving here.
Yeah.
Like, because this is home. I will go visit some places. I don't mind having a vacation property somewhere else in another place.
San Diego.
Excuse me. But for me, exposure is huge because like this weekend, we heard a testimony of somebody who was talking about because they were exposed to a certain thing that was negative when they were young, their whole life went in that trajectory.
Yep.
Like the trajectory of their life sent them on this tailspin downward into that negative thing they were exposed to.
It works both ways.
And as I was listening to it, I was like, wow, that could work the other direction though.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so then I started thinking about how over the last couple of months, like we went on, me and my wife went on vacation with our really good friends. And we were down in Southern California, and I was like, man, this is dope because we did our vacation a little bit different this time. I was like, this needs to be a more regular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This don't need to be like a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Yeah.
I got exposed to it. I was like, man, no, this we going to make this happen.
Yeah.
Then, like, shortly after that, Elders Intensive, we went down in the same area, and I'm like, y'all done messed up and got me exposed. Y'all done messed up and exposed me to this. Like, I never would have thought I would stay in the neighborhood that we stayed in.
Yeah.
I never would have thought I'd be driving through like this, like everybody around here, this is normal.
Right.
And I'm like,
kids driving to school with G-Wagons, bro.
Bro, you done messed me up. Like, I'm like, yeah, nah, ain't a theologian alive that can convince me that this ain't for me too.
Right. So to speak to that, and I'm gonna come back to you, Jay, but to speak to that, Donald, I think something that's very important about like you saying that you are being exposed to these things outside of Sassoon, right? But wanting to stay in Sassoon is extremely important because living in, I mean, I've been in Sassoon the last 30 years. I'm 30 years old. I've been here my whole life. And I've never really I haven't seen many people. If there's someone, let me know. People who have quote unquote made it big, and then when people ask them where they're from, say I'm from Sassoon City, California. They'll generalize it to something bigger.
They'll give the area code,
right? 707, right? Fairfield. What?
There's only one person I can think of.
Who?
One person.
One person.
Who is it?
That's why did I just forget his name that fast? Rick Rock.
Oh, Rick Rock.
Rick Rock Beats, Uncle Ricky Rock.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Shout out,
Rick Rock Beats.
And but that's extremely important because so for me, because of that, I thought people who are from Sassoon don't make it big, or people don't know what Sassoon is. So when I make it big, I'm not gonna say from Sassoon. So being able to, I guess, like look around, to be exposed, you feel me? But then to be a pillar also in the same city and say, okay, well, guess what? Good things do come, from Sassoon, is extremely, extremely important. So to be able to reach out to the next generation, like you were saying, to have, a Paul, a Timothy, like for me, like with Ivy, or Jericho, when you see like the youth and you see the gifts and the talents inside of them, to be able to pour back into them and say like, yo, there is greatness inside of you, or to expose them to the greatness that you're experiencing, so they can push you on. Cause that's like, it's a blessing. Like when you're pouring into somebody, the same person you're pouring into later down the line will be the person pushing you along, or pulling you up. Like for instance, my little brother, growing up, he used to see me. I was from high school to college, extremely fit. And that what like planted a seed in him, like, oh, I want to exercise growing up. Now my little brother is almost stronger than me. You know what I mean? If not stronger than me right now.
Like how you put almost
stronger.
Almost.
That sound like older brother pride. Right?
I'm not talking about Caleb. I'm talking about Austin. Yeah, for sure. So he's like, it's to the point to where it's like he's pushing me, to work out. And then now it's like to the point where he's like pulling me up like, all right, bro, come on, because you see where I'm at now, right? You know what I mean? Like it's this double-edged sword, and I think it's extremely important to be pouring into and to be poured into at the same time.
What was funny about that too is going into that whole exposure thing, like downward to Timothy, like, like my son, Jericho. He's definitely going to the league, definitely going D1, going to the league. I already like that's already settled, man. Like I wouldn't need no mighty Russian wind, no writing on the wall, no none of that, man. Like that's where he's going. That's the trajectory that God has him on, and he knows it, and we claim that. But just understanding that last year, you know what I'm saying, like I took him to a football camp. You know, me and JR took him to a football camp up in at Sac State. And what's funny is like he's walking around looking at the stadium like oh my God, like he walked into the Roman Coliseum because like he had never seen anything like that of that magnitude. I'm like, dude, because it dawned on me. I'm like, oh wow, he's never been around anything like this. And I said, look, man, you're getting a glimpse of what is going to be your norm. This is going to be your norm.
Yeah.
And so after that experience and him getting out there and like just, you know, he got comfortable with it and everything. And now he's been like being exposed even more. Like he has coaches that are working on you know, connecting him with different schools and stuff like that. And he's even gone to some other games at college games and stuff like that and walked on the field and met some of the players, so on and so forth. So he's getting exposed to like where it is that he's heading to. You know what I mean? And I think that's important for all of us. Like going back to your initial question about having the Paul, the Barnabas, the Timothy in your life. Like it's very important that we live right now in a day and age, and I think we touched on this last time, like we live in a day and age where there's the most generations alive at one point in time. Yeah, I think it's like 7 generations that are alive all at one time, and there's a teaching up as well as there's a teaching down. And so I definitely think that's important because even the ones that we mentor and we pour into, we're learning stuff.
Absolutely.
We learn how no matter how mature we are, that we need to still keep that childlikeness in us. And then also the fact that we can, you know, the Bible talks about us as a community of believers, that the older teach the younger, and the younger lend your strength and your energy toward the older ones who aren't as active and as energetic as you. You know what I'm saying? And so
like a real like a for example, there's a kid, I'm not like gonna name his name, but like he just recently started coming to our youth group. He's a senior in high school. And we get to talking, and he started saying like, yeah, I'm getting into media too. I'm starting to do production. And I was like, cool, man. I was like, what do you do? He's like, I've been doing a lot of social media videos. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's being real casual about it, right? So he's like, all the kids are like, you haven't ever seen him before? I'm like, no. So he goes and he shows me his TikTok. He had 350,000 followers on TikTok.
What?
350,000 went viral. His most viral video had a couple million views.
Wow.
So, but he's super humble kid, and he's just like, yeah, man, I just been doing all my stuff on my phone. I'm looking for a microphone. I need a microphone for a camera. I'm like, bro, I got a microphone for you. Yeah. And so it wasn't necessarily a thing of me like going, well, let me get connected to this kid because he's famous. But it was like, bro, what are you doing that you got this traction? Not even, he don't have all this. Yeah. But he's still able to do it with just his phone. It's like, hey, man, if I can just give you just this little bit to kind of help you along the way. Yeah. And I truly believe he's going to be going and doing great things because of where his mind already is. Right. I'd love to be a part of that. Yeah, no. And I don't need any credit. I don't need to be one day like, shout out to JR for make. I don't need that.
Microphone by JR.
Right. I don't need that. But in my mind, I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm still rooting for you, bro. Yeah. Like,
there's definitely like a transfer. That's happening both ways, right? Something I want to speak to in regards to what you were talking about, Donald, like how you're so convinced, right, about everything that you're convinced about right now. You know, whether it could be, you know, Jericho or where the trajectory of your life and where it's going to head in whatever business endeavors that you have going on. Like there definitely is a difference between being convinced, right, and being, cocky, right, or conceited. Convinced, you know, there's actually a foundation there. What's like conceit is something that like if you stand on it, you know, the foundation will crumble because there's not much of a foundation there in general. Right. And I think that what sets it apart really is just knowing the difference between like talent, right, and positioning. Like you can be able to acknowledge that you're talented in something, but you also have to be able to put yourself in a position, right, to succeed in whatever it is that you're doing, like the work that you're putting in, right?
That it takes work to get into that position,
and it takes work to gain confidence in what you are talented or gifted in. You know what I mean? Like I was listening to a podcast recently. This man was explaining this. This speaker came up, and he was talking about how much money he had been making in real estate. Right? Now, the guy who was speaking the podcast, he's like a marketing expert. He said the guy was extremely Like he was not a good salesman. He could tell by the way he was speaking, by the way, like the angle of his message, that he wasn't very talented in what he was doing, but he was in the right market, right? He was in the right market. He was positioned in the right place to where you don't really have to be very talented, right, to sell what he was trying to sell. So he's making a lot of money. It's like, taking a bottle of water to the desert. You don't have to be a good salesman.
It'll sell itself.
It's gonna sell itself. But on the other end, he said that in his mastermind group, he had a woman who was extremely talented, but she wasn't positioned in the right place, right? She was a great saleswoman. Her messaging was right. Her angle was right. Everything was perfect, but she was in the wrong market, so she didn't experience like the fruit or the rewards of the success that she should be experiencing had she positioned herself in the right place, right? So to be able to invest the time, right, to work on your talents, whatever that happens to be, or to invest in the talents of someone else. This kid that you're talking about, JR, clearly he's talented. You know what I'm saying? So for you, you're like, man, let me invest, however I can to help him position himself in any way possible, that he can. And if he can teach me other ways that I can position myself, like there's that upward and that downward. But I wanted to acknowledge, like, you can be convinced about what it is that you're gifted in. Like, you absolutely can be. But just because you're gifted in something doesn't mean that you shouldn't be working at it. What?
That's absolutely the truth. Because I had that revelation. So for me, one of the reasons why, I say I'm a professional late bloomer. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? but like when I was young, I had all of my eggs in the basket of my talent. Like I was like, oh, I'm talented, man. I'm gonna be successful because I'm talented, right? That's what all you hear about is talent, right? But it wasn't until I got older and realized I'm like, man, hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard, right? I was like, when I first heard that, like I was way older when I first heard that statement. I'm like, wish somebody would have told me that a long time ago, right? Like literally, like nobody was like explaining to me. And I'm like, and I keep looking at like this whack creative, it ain't even creative, like this whack person getting all this traction and having all this success. And I'm like, dude, why am I over here? I'm way more talented than this person was because that person out there hustling.
Exactly.
They beating the street. They out there hustling. Yeah. They staying in people's faces. They constantly, you know what I'm saying? Which again, so that alludes to the other thing too, is like with imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's not just imposter syndrome. Sometimes it has to do with like how you think people see you. Right? And the thing is at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how people see you because you have no control over that anyway. Right? And so you might as well just go ahead and be who it is that you're supposed to be. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so for me, like it took me a long time before I even heard that concept and was able to actually apply it. And then now that I have a relentless work ethic, right? And not just like it's a matter of making sure that I focus and hone in on what it is I need to focus on in that moment or in that season and execute. Yeah.
That's important. It's like what I'm hearing you guys kind of say is like there has to be a refining process in order to get the value out of something. Because I mean, like, it's funny to me, like, you see those movies where like all of a sudden they were digging in their backyard and the oil started spilling out. Well, that oil is not going to be truly valuable until it's been refined so that it can be sold and be used in those different places. It's like, okay, you can have the raw material of what it is and it has value, but until it's been refined is where you get the true value out of it. And so I think just as an encouragement for people that are kind of going into their talents, if you're a young person, if you're a professional late bloomer like my brother over here, it's just important that you do put that work in, even if you are talented, especially in the music industry. You could be talented as a musician, but if you haven't had different circumstances and situations that help kind of sharpen you and get you to where you need to be, then, okay, you're just a talented guy. There are plenty of talented people in this county that could play football, but they don't put the work in.
Man. Right.
There are plenty of talented people that could get a Division I scholarship, but they don't want to put the work in the classroom. And so it's just kind of like, okay, cool, you're talented, cool, you're good at football, cool, you're good at music, cool. Bro, you got to put your work in to put yourself in the right position in order to succeed.
Right, right, absolutely. So I guess ultimately, man, like overall, like this has been like a really good discussion, obviously. But I'd say, like, if anything, the takeaways for, those of you guys that are out there listening, and even for us, man, is just, learn to be confident in who it is that God has created you to be.
Right.
If you feel like that God has given you creative talents and abilities, you need to use them. Use them for His glory, and use them for the good of others. Right? Again, there's that whole component of service. Right? Josh was sharing that he do it for free for somebody at first, and then when they come back, that obviously shows that there's a need for it, right? There's a demand for his services. And so I just want to encourage you guys out there to put yourself out there and offer your services. I mean, again, just being of service. Every restaurant, every business that's out functioning and open for operation, they offer a service,
Right.
Yeah.
right? They're offering a service, and so that's what it's all about. They found their niche, their market by offering a service, and people go for them to have those services fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so just want to encourage you guys to do the same. Just have a heart of service. Whatever it is that you do, whatever you do creatively, just make sure you have a heart of service. First serving God and then serving others.
All right.
Amen.
And on that note, we will see you guys next time. Watch me develop, and we'll holler at you later. Y'all be blessed.
Yes, sir.
Peace.